Hello and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. On behalf of OTC Markets, we are very pleased you have joined us for our 2 days Metals and Mining Conference. Our next presentation is from Silver47 Exploration. Please note you may submit questions for the presenter in the box to the left of the slides. You can also view a company's availability for a one-on-one meeting by clicking Book a Meeting in the top toolbar. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Gary Thompson, Chief Executive Officer and Director of Silver47 Exploration, which trades on the OTCQB venture market under the symbol AAGAF and on the TSXV under the symbol AGA. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And yeah, welcome everyone, and thanks for taking the time to hear the Silver47 story. Silver47, and by the way, 47, why is 47? Well, 47 is the atomic number for silver. And so it's a fairly new company. We've only been trading since last November as a public company, but been very aggressive and active, looking and acquiring assets. And so this slide really talks to the pending merger. We announced a merger of equals with a company called Suma Silver, and to create a U.S.-focused premier high-grade silver developer, and you're really looking to build silver ounces in the U.S. And you know that is a bit of a rare animal. There's not a lot of certainly not a lot of high-grade silver opportunities in the U.S., but there are a few, and we're starting to amass, I think, some critical mass here with this merger, which just so happens is being voted on today, July 24th. So looks positive. I think we've got strong support, and the pro forma company will be what we're talking about today. This is our forward-looking statement, so I encourage you to take a look at this on our website, silver47.ca, at your leisure. So really, this is the summary of the projects that we have. There's 3 main assets on the pro forma company. The main project, a more advanced project, is the Red Mountain in the state of Alaska. And we can see there we've highlighted a number of, I'll just see if I can get my pen, draw it here. We've, yeah, we just highlighted a couple of the intercepts. So quite impressive silver grades. In the case of the Red Mountain, it is a polymetallic VMS style deposit. So we get silver, gold, zinc, copper, lead. And in addition to that, we have some interesting amounts of gallium and antimony, which we're doing some additional work on to assess the potential value add to Red Mountain with those critical minerals, antimony and gallium, which have been restricted by China, which I think many people probably know has a control on a lot of these critical minerals. So it'll be an important project as we advance. So just one to highlight there, 6.1 meters of 1,988 grams per ton silver equivalent, and you can see the makeup there, almost 400 grams silver and over 5 grams of gold plus copper and lead and zinc. In addition to that, so we have the Hughes project in Nevada, which is the part of the famous Tonopah mining district, and again generated some very high grade silver gold numbers at the Hughes project. And we'll talk a bit more about the resources as we get into this. And then the third project is called Mogollon in New Mexico. Again, some very high grade silver gold drilling intercepts. There was some past production there up to World War II, but nonetheless some impressive silver gold grades here. So we've got a really strong portfolio that we plan to advance through the drill bit and move these projects into PEA stage as quickly as we can. If you just look over to the left here on the resource statements, which we can show in more detail, 236 million ounces of silver equivalent at the 334 grams silver EQ grade on the inferred basis, an additional 10 million ounces silver equivalent at 333 grade grams per ton silver on the indicated. So it gives us about 246 million ounces of silver equivalent in the U.S. And we have a couple of fairly ambitious goals, and one of them is to achieve 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent, ideally in the U.S. And that's going to be our focus really is building this out in the U.S. And we think, given that we're a relatively new company, while we've been aggressive, we think we're still a bit of an unknown to the investor community. And we think there's a significant re-rate potential for Silver47, given that our current market value on a U.S. basis is about 32 cents an ounce of silver equivalent in the ground on a combined basis. So we think there's a lot of room to grow as we advance the company and get out there and tell the story. The other thing that we're excited about and looking forward to is while right now we're on the OTCQB, we do have our sights set on the New York Stock Exchange. So that's something that we want to grow towards as we advance at this company. Just a little bit on the transaction on the merger. So it was designed as a merger of equals. There was an exchange rate that was that put basically 0.452 Silver47 shares for each SUMA share held based on the 20-day VWAP prior to the announcement. And so it says here an applied pro forma market capitalization of 77 million. Well, a lot has happened since we announced this in May. In fact, we've seen silver pushing very close to $40 an ounce. So we've had pretty significant move in the price of silver, and both respective companies have seen substantial gains. So we are currently sitting on a pro forma basis of something closer to 100 and perhaps 120 million-ish Canadian market cap. And, as part of the transaction, we did announce a financing. So we ended up closing on 6.9 million sub-receipt financing, which was held in trust until this merger is closed. And if you look at the shareholder ownership breakdown, 56% will be held by Silver47 shareholders, and 44% of the pro forma company will be held by the SUMA shareholders. And we expect a positive vote here today. We'll see the final results. Hopefully we'll be announcing that in due course. And we'll be talking a bit more about the team, but yeah, I'm currently the CEO and founder of Silver47. I'll be moving to executive chairman, and Galen McNamara will be the CEO of Silver47 on closing of this transaction. I think I talked a little bit about a number of these points, but one of the main rationales that we shared a vision on is obviously building a larger silver-focused company in the U.S., as I mentioned earlier, but also just creating a larger company just provides better access to capital, a greater liquidity, and we think should be a more attractive investment vehicle for people looking to get exposure into silver. Here's just a little snapshot of some of our peers. This is why we think, one of the reasons we think that there's significant re-rate potential for Silver47 on a U.S. Enterprise value ounces in the ground. So this is a 32 cents ounce in the ground valuation that we see for the company. And if you look at a handful of our peers, like BlackRock and Argenta and Outcrop and Dolly Varden, you can see they're in that 80 to over $2 an ounce in the ground. So we think there's substantial increase in value as we get out and tell the story and unlock further value on the assets. But just where we're sitting today with the ounces in the ground, the 246 million ounces in the ground, we think there's substantial potential here for appreciation in our valuation. So we're going to work hard to make that a reality. Again, just some of the benefits which I talked about. the combined company will have an enhanced scale and strength. We're going to have a much stronger technical team. We've got 3 projects now that we can essentially work year round. We can work in Alaska in the summer months and then move into fall. As we move into fall, we'll be working on the Mogollon project in New Mexico and then over the winter and the Hughes project in Nevada. So we see with these 3 projects, we're going to keep very busy, and we're going to have year-round news flow and activity for the company as we continue to look for other M&A opportunities. So we're going to continue to seek out accretive transactions that will allow us to continue to grow into our 1 billion-ounce target company. And the other thing is, I mean, obviously, as we get bigger, we're looking to, get into, be part of that inclusion into the silver-focused indices, ETFs, which there are a few. And again, there's just not a lot of silver names out there. So we would anticipate that would also provide some substantial increase in our share price by that process. Just a bit more on the proposed management team. As I mentioned, I'm the founder of Silver47. I'll be moving to executive chairman. My background is in mostly mineral exploration, but I spent about 5 years in oil and gas. And before I started Brixton Metals, I was in geothermal power development. So this is basically my number 4 public company. And Galen McNamara, some 20 years experience in resource exploration, gold focused, uranium, and lots of experience in building out ounces. And Martin is going to be our CFO going forward. Alex Wallace is our VP exploration. And Jordy will be a VP investor relations. And Chris York is VP operations. So we've got a much stronger team on a pro forma company than we did have, I guess, independently. And then on the board of directors side, because we only were allowed to add 1 new director to the board, right now is a 4-person board post-transaction, which will include myself, Ryan Goodman, Galen, and Thomas O'Neill. And then at our next AGM, likely next spring, we'll likely add another 1 or 2 new board members just to grow the company. Here's the pro forma capital structure. On a combined basis, we'll have 138 million shares outstanding. Of course, with the share price, it says 91 cents here. This week has been actually an amazing week for Silver47 shareholders in the stock. I think tagged $1.22 Canadian. So it gives us about about 100 and maybe 130 million market cap-ish. And on a combined basis, we'll have about 15 million in cash. You can see the pro forma ownership. Mr. Eric Sprott will be our largest single shareholder, and we've got a number of institutions that make up about 15%, and insiders and management around 10%. So it's still largely a retail story, and obviously we're going to continue to grow our retail base, as well as perhaps balance out our institutional shareholders. So that's something we're looking to grow into as well, is just have a bit better balance on the retail versus institutional shareholder base. But nonetheless, fairly strong, and we've been successful in raising significant capital to date. I know there's a lot of numbers here, and you can look at this perhaps at your leisure. I think the takeaway from this is that we're, on a combined project basis, we're about 22 million tons. Just the Red Mountain alone is 15.6 million tons resource. So we think we're getting close to the critical mass we need to move the Red Mountain into a PEA. If you look at the grade here on a combined basis, it's quite strong, quite high grade. And really the takeaway here is I would just focus on this at the moment. We're 71 million ounces of silver and about 700,000 ounces of gold, 500,000 tons of zinc, a couple 100,000 tons of lead, and some copper and additional critical minerals like antimony and gallium that are not included in the resource, but we hope to add them perhaps with some additional work on the project. So again, on a combined basis, 236 million ounces in the on a silver equivalent in the inferred category, and another 10 million ounces in the indicated category. And just quickly on the Red Mountain, Red Mountain is in south central Alaska. We're about 100 kilometers, 60 miles due south of Fairbanks. And it's quite a large land position. It's a district scale here, 260 square kilometer wholly owned claim block. It's on state managed lands in Alaska, and it represents about a 60 kilometer favorable geological trend on the project. And most of the work has been focused on Dry Creek and West Tundra Flats, are the two main advanced targets that make up that resource. But so it's not an early stage project. There's some 40,000 meters that have been drilled to date, but we see lots of potential for new discoveries. And what's interesting about these VMS camps is they can be quite long-lived operations. And these types of deposits tend to form in clusters, or I use the term string of pearls. So when you find one, there's usually more, and you can just see the sort of layered nature of the rocks. So we fully anticipate that we'll find new areas for discovery. And we've got a whole cluster of targets out on the west end of the project that are more SEDEX affinity and some very thick mineralized horizons, but only really limited work out there. So we think there's lots of upside to this project as we advance in exploration and drilling. And we're actively drilling on this target right now. The plan this season for the main areas were really to expand on our resource, to try and grow our resource, and perhaps in early 2026 come up with a new stated resource. But this is really the reason that we got excited about this project. If you just look at some of these intervals here on the silver, really it's about the silver, 6.8 meters of over 900 grams silver. So some impressive silver hits. That's why we got interested. Plus we have gold, and we actually generated one of the highest grade gold hits 2024. We drilled a handful of holes, and we hit a 15-gram gold hit, 250 grams silver with 22% zinc. And so it provided for quite a substantial silver equivalent value there. So we're seeing a bit better precious metals, at least on the gold side, than some of the historical drilling. So the point of this cross section is to show you all the room that we have to grow here. This is the black line is the pit shell. So it's a combination of open pit and underground, and we think there's lots of room to grow this thing, and it's effectively open, as you can see, in multiple directions. So that's part of the plan for this year, is to continue to drill on this target to grow the resource. And if you look over at the West Tundra Flats target, and now these two zones are about 2.7 kilometers apart, and again, lots of room to grow here. We're currently drilling in this, we'll call it the donut. There was a hole here that they had some problems drilling historically, and we hope with some fresh drilling here, we can bring that back into the resource, and again, try and grow, basically grow this resource. Again, just looking at some of the silver hits here, some substantial grades for silver and gold. So it's really going to be a plan for expansion drilling, and we hope we can get this thing. There's enough meat on the bones here that we could move this towards a PEA. And some of the work we want to do this year, in addition to the drilling, is new metallurgical work. So there has been substantial metallurgical work done already, with recoveries in that 70 to 90%. And so we're looking to optimize on that work. In addition is to try and understand what kind of recoveries we might obtain from those critical minerals, antimony and gallium that I mentioned, because those metals have moved in value. The price per pound or per ton of antimony and gallium have gone through the roof over the last year. That just shows you all the critical minerals that we that we've been able to recognize in Red Mountain: copper, tin, even zinc, antimony, and gallium, in addition to the silver, gold. And then just quickly shifting gears over to the Hughes project in Nevada. It is in the famous mining district of Tonopah. It's between Reno and Las Vegas. You can see about here. There's been substantial historical production here. About 175 million ounces of silver were produced, and almost 2 million ounces of gold were produced here historically. So there was an initial maiden resource published this year, providing for almost 33 million ounces silver equivalent on the inferred category, another 10 million ounces in the indicated category, and almost another 3 million ounces on some tailings. So we think there's good growth potential here. And some of you may know the Black Rock Silver story. They're out here to the west. SUMA, and soon to be Silver47, has a large land position here around Tonopah and to the east. And we think there's substantial growth to find new vein discoveries. And this is a good example of some of the drilling that's been done here, and some very impressive silver and gold grades. And you can just see there's lots of room here to grow open ground, basically. Most of the drilling's been focused in around the relatively known veins and building ounces on that. But I just think there's lots of room to grow here as we move to the east. And there's another way to look at it. There's just lots of holes in the drilling. Just hasn't been as much drilling here, as like BlackRock's been doing out to the west. So again, some pretty impressive hits here. 3 meters of 1450. So some nice high grades. I think it's just going to take more drilling to advance this thing. Now, just quickly down to Mogollon. So the way we kind of envision the season rolling out for us is we're drilling right now in Alaska. Come the fall months, September, October, we'll be shifting gears into Mogollon. We'll wind down Alaska, and we'll ramp up Mogollon and get the drills turning down here. And then perhaps February, we'll shift gears from Mogollon to Nevada. So between the whole year of activity on the 3 projects. And what I find is extremely interesting on the Mogollon, this reminds me like a classic epithermal silver gold vein district that you would see in Mexico, and we're in the US. So it's one of the last remaining vein fields in the US that's really underexplored. Most of the exploration and the past production came from, this about a 2.5 kilometer section of the Queen vein. And you've got about an 8 kilometer strike here of this vein that's very continuous. And they've been able to map about 77 kilometers. If you look at all these little red lines, numerous other vein structures that have been identified and sampled at surface, but not really drilled off. They did publish a 32 million ounce silver equivalent resource this year. So to me, this looks like a very exciting, easy growth opportunity for more ounces in the US. We're getting excellent metallurgical recoveries, 97 for silver and 98% for gold. So we think it really is an underexplored district vein field that we plan to unlock the value as we get the drills turning on this project in the fall. Again, this is some of the past production here. You can see that's been kind of grayed out. And here's some of the drilling that's been done to make up the resource. 31 meters of 448 grams, substantial intercept. But lots of room here, you can see below some of these old workings, and even below this consolidated mine. And as we get over here into the Deadwood here, just lots of room to grow from the known. We know this is a substantial vein. It just has not really been drilled to depth or even along strike here. So I think within this 2.5 kilometer area, we've got lots of room to grow substantial ounces. And then we've got an additional 6 kilometers of strike just on the main Queen vein. And that's not even counting all the other veins that are yet to be drill tested. So this is going to keep us busy for some time. And just in summary, we've got a substantial resource base in play. We are planning to grow on that with with drilling, really focused on those 3 projects to advance them along the development curve. We are planning an updated resource for Red Mountain, likely Q1 2026. And again, hopefully there's enough meat on the bones that would allow us to push that into a PEA. And then I guess obviously we're looking at other accretive M&A opportunities. So we'll look to build on that as we work towards our goal of 1 billion ounces of silver equivalent in Silver47 in the U.S. and one of the most prolific mining jurisdictions in the world. So with that, I guess I can open it up for questions. So one of the questions is, what are our milestones for the next 12 months upon the completion of the merger, and will we need to raise capital to support these initiatives? Well, I'll answer the second part of that question first. We're right now pro forma about 15 million in cash, so I think we're in decent shape cash-wise for now. But we are, planning fairly aggressive drilling, and of course, drilling costs money. So we'll be looking to raise capital at the appropriate time when there's a attractive window, and obviously our share price has done well recently. So we'll look to try and capitalize on those movements and investor interest as need arises. And I think I did touch on, the plan really is Alaska here in the summer, move down to New Mexico in the fall, and then over the winter months, perhaps into Nevada, Hughes project, and then back up to Alaska in next summer. Milestones, I think obviously getting to a new resource statement, and I think a substantial milestone for us would be just getting new resource statements on each and every one of these projects, but getting enough critical mass on the project to move them into a PEA would be substantial. And obviously, I mentioned that we're pretty keen on growing up and getting onto the New York board, so that'll be substantial for us. And then another question is, so I asked about our 3 projects all greenfield. Well, they're actually not greenfield. Our 3 assets are advanced stage projects with substantial resources on them. The Red Mountain in Alaska is the largest of the 3 projects, 15.6 million tons. And if you look at what it needs to make economics, we think if you get to a sort of a 10-year mine life, and if you look at it like a 2,500 ton a day operation, that's like 18 million tons. So we think if we can get that 18 to 20 million tons, it's probably enough to move it into a PEA and start a development plan for that. Yeah, I think, let me check for other questions there. One of the questions is, how many meters do we plan to drill in the next 12 months? Well, I think if you just, look at even just one drill turning, it's something like 2,000 to 3,000 meters a month. So, you could be looking at 30 to 40,000 meters perhaps over the course of, 1 year. And of course, and that's just one drill. So if we can have some success and we continue to see investor interest in the market, obviously would love to raise larger tranches of capital, higher levels. And then we would like to add obviously more drills so we can accelerate that growth prospect. So time will tell on that, but I've always said we'll be as aggressive as the capital will allow. And I think if we can see those movements in the market and silver continue to rise, which looks like is happening, I think we'll accelerate that, that growth and certainly accelerate the amount of meters that we can grow per project per season. Just checking the questions again. Yeah, so I think just the question on the merger, assuming the vote is approved today, which we anticipate is likely the case, I think we're looking at a closing around August 1st to finalize the documents So the plan is to vote today, then we have a day in court, and then we just finalize some paperwork, and we should be good to go. So yeah, keep an eye on that news. Just one question about the notable neighbors. I mean, I did talk about in Nevada, we have BlackRock Silver is next door to Suma, which is soon to be Silver47 in Tonopah. In Alaska, there are a couple of other companies. Felix Gold has some ground near Red Mountain, and there's another private company that has substantial land position that is in the process of going public around the Red Mountain project. So there are some neighbors actively doing exploration work in the area. In New Mexico, there are some not too far away large copper projects. It is copper country in that part of the world. Yeah, I think we're in good shape, and I think we're pretty much out of time here. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to the Silver47 story. Thank you.